The following was originally published in 2018, and while I stand by the critiques of The Last Jedi I make, I deeply regret any direct personal attacks I make against Rian Johnson, Kathleen Kennedy, or any other employee of Lucasfilm. Those comments were made in anger and frustration, and I will do a separate video about that after this series.
The Last Jedi has a few political themes that feel at best forced into the story, and at worst, well, they just make this movie the biggest budget propaganda film of all time. So, let's get started. We'll start with feminism. Okay, this is probably the most obvious and the most obnoxious of all the political agendas shoved into this film. First of all, let me say for the record that it is perfectly okay to have a feminist theme in a film. It is okay to portray strong women in film, but if you're going to do so at the expense of the film as a whole, that is a terrible mistake. The real problem with the feminist aspects of The Last Jedi is not that the female characters are strong, smart, capable leaders, etc. It's that in order to make them strong, smart, and capable, they make all the men in the film the exact opposite. To really get what I'm talking about here, let's look at the major characters in the film and their various arcs. To avoid the appearance of attempting to stack the deck, I will simply address the characters in the order in which they appear on their IMDb listing. So first, Luke Skywalker. Luke is the opposite of Rey in this film. While Rey succeeds at almost everything, Luke fails at almost everything. When we first meet him, he refuses to help, he refuses to train Rey, but he fails at both of those. Heck, he fails at not doing things. Rey convinces him to help him by the end, and further convinces him to train her despite the fact that he doesn't even change his mind that the Jedi should end. Luke fails to beat Rey in hand-to-hand combat. Luke then reveals that he's failed as a teacher to Kylo as he almost murdered him in his sleep. When Luke finally comes out at the end, the effort of phoning in a confrontation with Kylo literally kills him. Luke dies alone, a bitter old failure. Luke did buy the Resistance some time, but ultimately it would be Rey who saves the day. Twice. Leia Organa. Leia succeeds at least most of the time. While she's dealing with depression over the overall situation, she successfully evacuates the first Resistance base early in the film. And she's so awe-inspiring that Kylo himself could not bring himself to kill her, even though no more than 48 hours earlier, Kylo murdered his father in cold blood. She's blown out into space, and she uses the Force not only to survive the vacuum of space, but to actually fly back to the ship. By the end, she successfully leads what's left of the Resistance to freedom on the Falcon. Also, keep in mind that in the obligatory inspiration speech before the final battle that happens to be given by Finn in this film, well, it wasn't about believing in freedom or fighting oppression. It wasn't even about believing in good over evil. It was about the fact that all around the galaxy, there are lots of people who believe in Leia. Kylo Ren. Kylo fails most of the time in this film. He fails to kill his mother in the first battle. He fails to destroy the Resistance ship despite the ship being virtually defenseless. He fails in his fight against the Praetorian guards and he needs to be rescued by Rey. He fails to defeat Luke. He fails to catch the Falcon at the end of the film despite having vastly superior forces. The only thing he succeeds at was to kill Snoke, which he succeeds because he was inspired by you got it, Rey. Speaking of which, let's talk about Rey. Rey is the classic Mary Sue. She is quite literally the best at everything she attempts to do. Aside from what we already saw in The Force Awakens, we now see that she is the best gunner in the galaxy. She's a better Jedi than Luke Skywalker. She's a better Sith than Kylo Ren. And she's better at hand-to-hand combat than the First Order Praetorian Guards. She is perfect in every way. Her only hardship, if you want to call it that she faces is not knowing who her mom and dad are, and she gets a minor cut. That's about it. She has no real arc. She just shows up when the plot requires her and she saves the day. She does not learn from Luke. She steals his books and teaches him. She does fail at converting Kylo, and she's not as powerful as Snoke. But even so, the way that this film plays out, it is Kylo that fails her. And Snoke, while wielding incredible power, is killed by Kylo, and Kylo could not bring himself to kill, you guessed it, Rey. Not to mention, at the end of the film, everyone is still alive and saved by Rey. Yay. Let's talk about Finn. Finn, in the last film, had an interesting arc. He started out cowardly and then became brave because he was inspired by Rey. Now, he's a coward again because he's afraid that Rey is in danger. But thanks to his love for Rey and the swift kick in the pants that he gets from Rose, he begrudgingly does the right thing, which is apparently to kill and maim uncounted innocent civilians at Canto Bight. In the end, he decided to sacrifice himself to save the resistance. But Rose stops him because we can't have a filthy man save the day. We need to let that honor go to Rey. Poe. Poe's entire arc can be summed up as men should just learn to blindly follow orders from women. In the opening battle, Poe starts out as the hero, but because he disobeys Leia's order, it costs the resistance most of their strike craft. And in the end, the battle is won by Paige, because we cannot have a filthy man save the day. Poe is the best pilot in the galaxy, as we saw in the last film. But in this film, in the final battle, he flies out in the speeder, then promptly just turns around and runs away. He tries to lead the resistance survivors to safety, but he has to be rescued by Rey. That's just the first few characters. We could go on, but the film just goes out of its way to show men as being incompetent, treacherous, or irrelevant, while women are wise, tough, or just plain always right, even when it doesn't appear that they're right. In fact, the only character that is not specifically a woman who is really painted in a positive light is BB-8, who is a genderless machine. With the exception of when Luke confronts Kylo at the end, in every case, heroism must be done, or at least enabled, by a woman. And even then, the only reason that Luke shows up to confront Kylo is A, because Rey convinced him to do it, and B, to help out Leia. So yeah. In order to be good in Star Wars, apparently you have to be a woman or a robot ball. Again, the problem with The Last Jedi is not that there are strong female characters or that the main character of the trilogy is a female. It is that every woman is competent and every man is incompetent. And that the lead character is an overpowered, flawless Mary Sue to end all Mary Sues. Two of my favorite film franchises are the Aliens films and the Terminator films. And guess what? In Terminator 3 and Terminator Salvation, when they tried to shift the focus to John Connor, it wrecked the franchise. And in Alien Resurrection, when they tried to make Ripley into more of a side character rather than the main protagonist, it wrecked the franchise. So yes, you can make a strong female lead, but you need to learn how to write. You need to not be afraid to put our protagonists into real danger in order to avoid the Mary Sue trap. In fact, this whole thing is kind of sexist. I would dare say that The Last Jedi is one of the most sexist films I've seen in recent years. Now, that may sound crazy to you. After all, it's this huge feminist propaganda piece. You can't be feminist and sexist at the same time. No, actually, you kind of can. And I'm not talking about sexist in that discriminating against men is sexist, which technically it is, but we'll get into that later. No. The thing is that Rian Johnson needs to make sure that every female character is protected. We do not want to see our female characters beaten up, injured, at least not injured in any severe way, or just lose. Even when they do, it's done in such a way as to try to minimize the impact. Leia, after being blown out the airlock, looks just fine. She's just unconscious. Rey gets what amounts to little more than a minor cut on her arm. Rose gets a couple little scratches. And even when our female characters are killed, it's done off screen. We do not see Holdo die like we did with Captain Dummy earlier in the film. We do not see Paige Tico die. We just know that they did die because the ships they were on were destroyed. Heck, even Captain Phasma just falls into a pit and we assume she dies. But many, including myself, think that she's going to come back in episode 9. This overt protection of females in the film is an attempt to prevent the women who they hope will flock to the cinema to see their great work of feminism will all be okay. We don't want them to feel bad. It's okay to show men getting killed, maimed, dismembered, etc., but we can't do that to a woman because it might hurt the feelings of our intended audience. If the ultimate goal of feminism is, as stated, to strive for a total equality between men and women, then what we should see is equal amounts of competence, ineptitude, success, and failure from both sexes. Instead, what we see in this is that men are dumb, apish brutes that should be listening to the obviously superior women. Fuck you, Rian Johnson. Fuck you and this whole fucking agenda to the... All right, I'm getting a little worked up here. So that covers feminism. But there's... And I will say, feminism was the largest, as far as most overt and obvious political agenda shoved into this film. But believe it or not, there are several more. And so I'm going to get to them in part 2 of this, which will be the absolute final video on The Last Jedi that I intend to ever produce unless... Well, I think it's just, yeah, that'll be it. I'm probably never going to watch this film. I'm done. I am just done with The Last Jedi. Fuck you, Rian Johnson. Fuck you. I hate you. I never want to see any of your work again. I just want...
Hit the like button, you will. Likes lead to comments. Comments lead to conversations. Conversations lead to understanding. Go to Patreon and support the anti-trucker you must, if supporting his videos you want. Yes, support his videos. Then listen to this at the end of the videos. You will not